always miss out on the music.
Oh, man. Really?
Yeah, can't do your
Well, late to the game.
All right. How's everybody doing this week? We are having a decent week.
Mm-hmm.
So, praise him in the good
And
weeks and praise him in the bad weeks.
Today is a magic day, beginning of the month. Everybody who gets paid on the first of the month or the end of the month got their paycheck today.
Yeah, so probably we shouldn't get all fired up because this is kind of like what do they call it? The perfect storm or whatever, where you have, it's the end of the month, getting paid weekly, getting paid bi-weekly, also everybody that was dealing with taxes that's kind of behind them and they're moving forward. And, we had the April showers. Now we're ready for the May flowers. How about that?
Yeah, some blooming sales. But it's been good sales, and we've been sharing on my short post that we are
Daily stuff.
Yeah, just a daily update. We're trying to find that balance, and it's clearly like walking a tightrope. I think that you just have to weigh everything out, and I think we're constantly going to be adapting the number of listings that we post each day. So we've scaled back to 6 per day. 5 of those are our normal niched items. They're men's clothing. And then 1 item is going to be from our basement renovation, construction business supplies.
The Stevens Depot.
Stevens Depot. And I am so happy to say that 8 days after we listed the first item, I think it was 8 days, close to that. Anyway, we sold the first tub and shower faucet that we posted. So 1 item down, only about 1,000 more to go.
Yeah.
It's gonna be a journey, but we are officially in process now.
Yeah, it is funny because a year ago, that's the reason why we started this.
Yeah.
So,
The basement is the reason that we discovered eBay.
yeah.
After it's been around for 20 years.
On the positive note, we now know that we don't need those things.
Yeah.
Because we haven't done anything with them for
For
quite a while.
a good solid 4 years.
Yeah.
We've pulled from it to help other people out, but
Yeah. But stuff like we did a lot of, it's not stainless steel, it's brushed nickel. We did a lot of brushed nickel back in the day with flips, and my daughter does not like brushed nickel.
nope.
So none of her
Black
stuff.
faucets now.
Yeah, everything is black. It's not even.
Yeah. I don't know.
Bronze.
Brushed nickel may be trending back.
Somebody wants it 'cause
another
somebody
thing,
want it.
yeah, another thing that's constantly changing. Well, if you've got a house full of brushed nickel things and you need to replace a faucet, you don't want to replace everything. So if you're trying to keep things the same, especially if it's rental property or
True.
something like that. So anyway, we are having a good week and ready to talk about some things that we are struggling with. So why don't
Well,
you?
that list is long. So,
Well, yeah.
so-
Well, that's the whole reason for this channel, because even if we never have a big following or anything, this is to journal our experience and to help us find answers for things. And we've always just been the kind of people that if we've got to research it and figure it out, then we may as well let somebody else benefit from that. So part of what we're doing is we're finding solutions for things, and we're just sharing that. Our solutions may not be your solutions, but
Hey,
if they,
but if you have a solution,
Exactly.
we need y'all to comment
Yeah.
because we're looking for feedback.
yeah, we're looking for answers, and again, walking that, ever-changing world of eBay. So one of the things that we have heard from the very beginning is sell-through rate. Sell-through rate. When you're looking at items and you're deciding what to source, look at the sell-through rate. It needs to be a good sell-through rate. Well, that's not super clear.
No. I think we talked about this briefly last week, but you just, and we are going to do a proper video just on that. It's a phrase that
Another YouTuber
homesteader
uses.
He's going to do a proper video, but we will do a proper video on that because.
Well, we'll do a video on that. I don't know how proper it'll be.
It won't be nearly as proper as his, but we will do a video on that because we've almost got to the point when we're out thrifting that we just don't hardly look up anything. I do like Monday, we found a couple brands I'd never heard of in my life, and so
We'll look those up.
I looked those up. I looked them up on Google Lens first, and then I kind of swung back around if I wasn't really finding anything to see if eBay said anything at all about them, kind of deal. But once again, if you're not paying attention, you're not getting comps on. This was a Woods and Woods shirt. Never heard of them before. Maybe great, maybe terrible.
Who knows?
Who knows? Because I got a whole lot of comps for polos and everything else that didn't have anything to do with my Woods and Woods shirt. So anyway, this kind of goes back to the journey that I was trying to emphasize on last weekend. And then I kind of, in stepping into it, realized, okay, I kind of need to step back a little bit before I come back in because I was really a little frustrated, not a little, just, mildly frustrated with our current inventory tracking. Because I feel like we can't rely on eBay for their comps. So we got to create our own comps. So now, praise the Lord, when we first started out, we put a spreadsheet together. Now, I'm not saying it's anything wonderful.
Nothing to brag about.
But at least we
something.
started.
Yeah.
From day one, we just put down basic information about brand and
size,
shirt, pants, whatever.
And where we
color,
purchased it and what we paid.
How much we paid for it. Now, we had this grand vision that we were going to record, when we sold it, how much we sold it for.
How much we made.
Yeah, none of that happened.
We're not, we're...
A year later, we still haven't done it.
Well, we at least now have columns for the date we sold it and the amount we sold it for.
Columns are empty, but we have columns.
No, well, we're adding information in now, and so it's improving.
Yeah, at least some of that
At least
stuff
the
is still
1%.
available after the fact on eBay.
For a little while.
Yeah,
It doesn't stay there forever.
True, so we need to figure that out. But it will be a little bit painful to go back and add that stuff in. But I think eBay just reached out and asked you a question related to
Using the research tool.
Using the research tool. And what did you say to them?
Well, I just said that, for those of us who sell seasonal items, it's not really helpful if we're researching something at the beginning of April and the sell-through rate for those items and comps are based on the past 90 days.
I need a Cha-Ching little
You need
sound.
oh yeah, we'd have a
Cha-Ching.
sell.
There we go.
That works, yeah. So a little distraction.
Yeah, sorry.
So anyway, the sell-through rate is based on the past 90 days. And that's not accurate for an item that as you're beginning to list spring items for clothing. So I'm like, is there a workaround for that? Is there a way to actually get that number? I know that you can go back and you can look at a different time period. You can ask it to go back and look for 6 months or 12 months or whatever, but it's not going to give you a sell-through rate number.
Yeah, and
beyond
for us,
that 90
it's not super
days.
helpful because we started this time last year, actually 1st of April, and we were just starting, and we didn't have any idea what we were doing. And so currently our data for this time period, personal data, not that helpful.
Yeah.
But
But at least we have something
we want it to be worth something,
moving forward.
Yeah. Like I really feel like our first 6 months, not really worth spending a whole lot of time in that department, but
As far as looking at
our personal
sell-through
all that
rate
kind of
and,
stuff.
okay,
It's just kind
what's
of,
sold.
Yeah, it's kind of pretty vague because now when I'm doing in-listing sell similars for things that are, I'm like, why in the world did these not sell? Well, it's because I purchased them in the wrong season, listed them in the wrong season, and now all of a sudden, now it's the season.
Yeah, I know that there's definitely a benefit to listing things in season, but I also think that if you come across something that is not in season, but it is a good item, I don't think you should sit on it.
Yeah, I mean, I know there's one guy, and he has, this storage building is all about spring, and this is all about. It's not really a building; it's more like a closet. But anyway, but that's he's paying storage.
Well, I was about to say, if space is not an issue, then, and you have plenty of room, and you have plenty of inventory, you can afford to set those things aside that are winter right now and not list them and wait till the fall. But we're trying to run our business as lean as possible, and I know that
Did
a
you
lot of
say
other
lean?
people. Lean, I did.
As in lean did?
Lean. We're a lean business.
Lean
We're
machine.
trying to run things lean, so that means we don't. The best use of our listings or items is to just go ahead and get it listed. Why sit on it when you can potentially sell it out of season? We sold a pair of corduroy pants this past week. If we had just sat on that and said it's not the right season, then, we would have missed out on that sale.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to be really seasonal, but we're not really don't have that luxury right now. Like right now, we don't find good deals on very many shorts.
Right. Shorts also don't sell for a lot.
Compared to the other
Yeah.
things we did. Now, last week I found a ton of great deals on long sleeve button down shirts. So I bought them. And we still sell long sleeve button down shirts.
Right.
We sell chinos and all that kind of stuff right now. So, but we didn't find but maybe a couple pairs of shorts. We used to buy
Yeah.
swimsuits a lot, and to be honest, they
really do not sell for much. So,
you gotta be giving away. So we should bundle some stuff and make that
Possibly.
go away. But
so I just don't put a lot of effort into searching for swimsuits in the thrift stores because we know what style shorts do sell pretty okay, but we still
time and
don't
effort,
sell.
time and effort.
Yeah, it is. So, if we're going to make more money off of a, blazer or a long sleeve shirt or something, then I would rather make sure we have good purchases there.
yeah. So, obviously I did want to track data when we first started. I really didn't know what I wanted to track, though. I tracked whatever was obvious data.
I think 1 year in, we're still just finding out, ooh, this would be helpful to know.
Yeah, so I haven't even got to the point where I'm really, niching down on some of that stuff. But I do know that the more we track, the more powerful information that is to be competitive with others. And so we're nowhere close to having information that's currently helpful. But when I first started, it was just we focused on sourcing and listing.
Just get it up there.
Yeah, and we weren't even
And not really listing well,
and if
just
it sold
just
great,
listing.
we weren't even tracking that either. So it was just sourcing and listing. And then I realized that the further along, especially now more than anything, I mean, it takes you a minute for you to say, "Gosh, I wish we had this information." What was the thing that we just started doing like 2 weeks ago?
Putting in the sales date and the sales amount.
Also, the tracking what our active number was.
Oh, yeah. No, yeah, that's just been in the past few days, like totaling how many things we have done an in listing on and what is active, so that we have a picture, a snapshot of what our listings are. Trying to find that balance between how many items to list and where we don't want eBay to look at our store and say, "Oh, they're going down," like they're not replenishing their store. But we also don't want to be growing the store too fast and not keeping up with it with the sales. I feel like our sales, I mean, our inventory needs to grow a little bit more than what our sales are. So,
True. But our,
in order to look healthy.
like we spent some time, was it yesterday morning, really working on the area where we store everything, and we gained a little bit of space, but
We don't have a lot to
we
work
don't have
with.
a lot, and so that's the other reason why we're focused on selling old construction stuff to make room for this and to be better organized, and
Right.
also we need to come up with, we can talk about how we physically store things later and show some video of that, because the older we get, the heavier those bins are. Now, the bins were by far the cheapest route
To get
go,
started.
specifically because of where we were storing it, the room we had available, that kind of stuff. But when we load up that top bin, it ain't no fun.
No. I've gotten really good at heave ho and get that corner on the top one and then slide it back into place.
So, like I said, I kind of stepped back because inventory is a big deal. And I kind of stepped back and said, okay, what all kind of things, should we track now? Not that we're going to do all these things day one, but just trying to think big picture, because if you're, trying to do any kind of project, the key is kind of have a high overview of everything and then kind of come in and start working out the details. So some of the initial categories that I came up with are inventory management, which is the obvious one that we kind of do fairly well. Sales data, which we relied on eBay for that, and that's not super helpful. You can, and if some people have done better than we have in digging into the reports and that kind of stuff, so far
We're still muddling through.
yeah, we're still.
Can I ask you, are you going to go back and go over these? Because inventory
No, never.
management.
Never.
Okay.
Ever. So if you didn't get it, too bad.
Inventory management
I am
meaning.
going to come back.
Okay, all right.
The other one was customer feedback and returns. So instead of just getting all butthurt about it, like you should say, okay, whoa. And we have.
How can I
Like,
do this better?
How can I do this better? Like I gave you 15 different types of dimensions, but let me give you one more, or let me throw in a size chart. That's a new thing for us. And so we just have started doing that, and every brand is a little different. So, that's a new thing for us. One thing we definitely haven't been tracking at all is our marketing efforts. What have we
Right.
tried? What we haven't. Now, I call it my eBay journal, which is just really what things have we listed today, what things have I done in in listing sell similar on.
Okay.
But that really needs to be in the spreadsheet so that we can actually use that data, because if I'm going to really use them, I'll have to go back and input that stuff sometime, which can be painful. Seasonal trends, which we just talked about.
Yeah.
Like for us, and I'm fully convinced that our seasonal trends are not your seasonal trends.
No. I think it depends on your niche. And like if you're selling women's clothing is very seasonal. Men's clothing, depending on age, can be more seasonal. If you're dealing with, older men, probably not as seasonal.
Easy. Easy.
How often do you wear short sleeve shirts?
Well, I'm a stay-at-home.
You wear them year round.
I'm a stay-at-home employee.
Again, it depends on what your niche is. Like if
If you have the exact same store as us, you're not going to sell the same things we sell. I think
you're not going to have the same things available to you.
I think the algorithm has something to do with that, and we're not smart enough to know that. So if you do know that,
It's top secret.
let us know. But another one is like competitor analysis. So we keep saying, and I know some people that sell things similar to us, but I keep saying I need to go and just kind of dig into their store and look and different. I don't ever do that. So I need to. But if I do it, I need to store the information I find.
Yeah, it's
somewhere.
not easy to do because like we all struggle to keep our head down and do our own work, and it's hard to find the time to go and see what somebody else is doing. Copy off their page.
Financial tracking is a big one. And let's just go back and say, when we first started, we just thought this was going to be a way to clean the garage out, and so now it's a full-time business for both of us. So our financial tracking needs to be better. And then
Beyond that folder with receipts.
exactly, that's out of order and just shoved in there. And then the last one I have for now, if you've got more, let me know, but last one I have is like customer demographics. So like we like to use the term that I just drew a blank on, the when you're talking about our little person.
Avatar.
Avatar.
Okay.
Yeah. So we like to talk about our avatar as, grumpy old man like me kind of deal. But you kind of need to know that, you know. So I was shocked. I think I said this before, but I was shocked when I was looking at the update on some of the cores and the whole grandpa core, and that was me.
When you heard Grandpa Core, it's not what you envisioned
No.
your wardrobe to be
No,
titled.
I was thinking my grandpa, not me. So, not my
Yeah,
great-
but I am a grandpa.
Yeah,
or
not
I'm a
great-grandpa
grandma.
there. So, anyway, those are the beginning major categories that I'm looking at. So we've talked briefly about inventory management, but things that we did track and some things that we wish we had tracked. Like one of them is that we did track how much we paid per item individually.
Yeah.
So it's a little easier for us because the way that we do inventory when we put it in, we make sure that we just do everything from this store. And provided it's, we bought the color of the day kind of deal, the prices are all the same. Now we do
Or
have
we
some-
do come home with the chart for what the sales
Yeah,
items
normally
were.
I
So we-
write it on my hand because
You
when I'm
take a
walking
picture of
around, I'm
that?
like, which color am I looking for?
But we're also very blessed in that we can do the majority of our sourcing in one day a week. There are a lot of people that need to source multiple days, depending on what your
And currently,
store is.
currently we're just going to one store,
That'll probably change next week
probably because,
because it's ever changing.
yeah. We do put down data purchase, so that's helpful, but what's not helpful is date that we listed. it.
Exactly. I was about to say
I mean,
there are some
it is
items.
helpful, but it's not helpful that we'd never
Yeah.
put it in there.
Because we had some items, we sat on a lot of death pile for quite a while because we made the big mistake of going out in the beginning and we bought basically everything we could get our hands on and maxed ourselves out. We spent way too much money on items in the beginning.
And weren't even listing them.
Right. We sat on some of those things for 6 months. So it really would have been helpful to know, looking back now, how long that item has been listed because some of them have been relisted. We ended and self-similar.
It's a little easier now because if you look at the inventory, our SKU now
Has a lot of information. in
has
it.
a lot of information in there. So that's a good place that you could, if you don't have a spreadsheet or whatever, you can put that that information in the SKU. But our inventory number and goes into the SKU as well as the listing date. So it's real easy for me to look at something in the future and go, oh, well, we listed that 4 months ago, and that was a bad time of the year for listing that item. So, I know why that one's set for a long time. But we didn't used to do that. We just used to only just put the inventory number in there. That was it.
So when we come across a listing now that only has a 4-digit inventory number or SKU number, we know that it was listed a long time ago.
A long time ago. But also now we know that the older the inventory number is, it's pretty accurate that we listed those, that week or the week after instead of
Oh, you mean
months.
current, like the higher numbers?
Yeah, our current higher numbers, our last ones, because now we didn't necessarily even list them in order. It was just like whatever we felt like we should do this week.
Right.
So it's pretty random. In the
Because
beginning.
we also did separate some things then.
We tried.
And said, okay, these are dark, these are winter items, let's put those in a
let's
bin
try
and
to
wait.
do it somewhat seasonally back then.
Yeah.
So,
Now we just list it as
Yeah.
we go.
so we do put
Which-
down the supplier and the source. So that is helpful, but we don't really go back to see, you know what, we really get a lot of good things from this place.
Uh-huh.
We just kind of trust our
Our
aging
I
noggins.
feel like we get I feel like that's a great place that we get really good blazers, or that's a place where we get really good pants. So
Yeah.
sometimes just going with what you feel, sometimes you need to listen to your gut. Sometimes you need to do more than just feel something.
So, and the last thing I wrote down in here, and this is just the initial thoughts about this, is condition. We don't track that. Occasionally, we will put
Newer
in
tags.
newer tags in
Yeah.
our spreadsheet occasionally.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that we do it every time, and we don't consistently put stuff in the same place.
Yeah, there should probably be a column for that.
Yeah.
New with tag, yes.
So, if you're just starting out, you're like, I ain't got time to mess with all this stuff. I don't need that. I'll do it later. No, you won't. No, you won't. And if you wait, it'll be a mess.
Mm-hmm.
It'll be really hard to go back, and you just won't do it, so you won't have anything. The beauty of doing it when you're first starting out is that you can play with it, and you can see.
Develop it as you go.
And get into this routine, because later when you're doing, 10, 15, 20 items a day,
Mhm.
like that's not the time to try to figure out how to input stuff in the spreadsheet. So, but it is what it is. But I would highly suggest that you start from the beginning with something. And there are other apps and stuff that people are using. A lot of people really depend on eBay. I know that there's some ways that you can export something from them, kind of deal. But I still go back to you're getting it the way they want you to have it, not necessarily what works best for you.
Yeah, but the concern for me too is if I'm using a software that I'm paying for or using eBay, if something happens, my account gets closed or frozen,
It's gone.
or I decide, I was using, I don't know, like I forget the name of the brand of the software that's like a cross-listing software that does your inventory as well. If you decide you don't like that, or if they sell it or they change it or whatever, you could potentially lose all the information that you have and have to completely start over. So I feel like even if you can rely a lot on
Yeah.
software or on eBay, you need a backup of some sort.
And we're-
Even if that's just exporting a spreadsheet from
Which is something
the
that
software.
we'll play with, and I need to write myself a note about doing that
Mhm.
because I listened to this guy, and he went through a major financial crisis and lost his job and everything else.
Mhm.
So he had no choice. He just canceled.
I bet
everything.
nobody can relate to that.
Probably not.
Mhm.
He had to cancel everything. Whatever he had a subscription to, it didn't make a difference what it was. He canceled everything. So if you have worked your way up in eBay and eBay inventory, you might have a store. Well, that's something you have to pay for. And if you decide, you know what, I don't want to pay for a store anymore, well, then you have to pay for every individual listing monthly. So there's numbers, and we need to do a video on just when to bump up because it's more cost effective to pay for the next store. We're kind of at a place right now where I don't know that we would
I
ever.
think we're good for a little while.
That we'd ever go up any further than this. But for him, he made the really hard decision that in order to do this, he had to cancel his store subscription. And he had to cancel a bunch of listings, so he wasn't paying all this
Oh, wow.
stuff.
Uh-huh.
And so he lost all that information. And, he was just like, as I start selling again and making money again, and
Build his way back.
I'll have to go back and re-input all that information again. So something that you want to think about, like
Uh-huh.
some people will use a cross-lister for that purpose because it will import all that information from eBay, and that's great, but you got to pay a subscription to keep that going too. So, there's that. So, if we had more data, then we would have a better understanding of which things give us the highest profit margin.
Yes.
Instead of going, didn't we look this up last week?
Do we get much for this?
Yeah, have we sold this brand? I know we bought it before. Has it sold before? Did it sell for more than, $1?
Yeah, we were looking at 2 flannel shirts that we found this week that I was like, I feel like they're supposed to be good. He was like, but did we sell? Did we sell the other ones that we had that were that brand?
And the funny thing is,
No.
I can't remember. Was it a George flannel shirt? We don't buy George for the most part. We used to, but we don't anymore.
No, it was Massimo. It was a brand that is
one of them. I don't remember which one it was, but it's something you get it either at Target or something like that.
one that I rolled my eyes and I'm like, ugh, that's like a Target brand or that's a Walmart brand or
And
whatever.
this guy snatched it super quick from us, and he said,
These
"This
are
is my
my
favorite. If you ever get any more, let us know." Well, I can't remember which ones they were.
Yeah.
So maybe
didn't
I
document that.
I probably
Okay.
just left those behind, and I could have said, "Hey, man, I just picked you up 3 flannels."
I do think that's one of the really cool things about shopping eBay is that we've all had certain branded items and models and styles that a store carried for a period of time. I can think of a couple of things that I used to buy from Target that Target quit selling it. And I bet if I looked for some of those now on eBay, I could probably find them and probably new with tags. So.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember what it had to do with. Oh, so if you're tracking more of this information, then we just had a situation happen to us where there was this one store, and we're like, you know what, this is our store. We will always go to the store. We don't need to go any other stores. And then they just all of a sudden decided to change everything. And
Kind of like eBay.
Yeah, and when they did, we were like, oh, this is no longer our store. But they still have probably the best bet on certain things. And so this is where it's a moving target. If you're not tracking this, you won't say, you know what, this is where I go to get pants. This is where I go to get shirts. This is where I go to get blazers. This is where I go to get ties. You don't know because you don't want to, you don't want to waste a bunch of time and gas for something that you might save 50 cents on. But if you're going to save a couple dollars and you're buying 40 of them, that adds up.
Yeah.
So those are things that, it just helps you if you're tracking more information. So just talking about step 1 on inventory management, like I would love to hear the things that you're tracking because, we kind of played around with editing our current spreadsheet and it kind of made it messy. And so, and we also found out we were not doing things consistently.
Right. Like just typing in the
Just spell it.
brand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, did you put, in a Jose Bank, did you put a period after the S and after the A? Or did you not? Because in a spreadsheet, it matters.
Yeah, it does.
Or if you accidentally hit space before you put the word in there. Or if you put, capital L, bean, no spaces,
Or no periods.
or no periods, or with periods,
They're not going to show up in the same place if you sort.
or you threw a space in there. See? So,
Yeah, well, also, if you're like, we're talking clothing, but if you sell other items, like what are the things that you track? Because, size and color may not be what's important to you. So distinguishing different items will require different information.
so where did the one you were jumping in on when you rudely interrupted me, were you talking about sales data?
Well, no, just the inventory, like,
Oh.
were you talking about the spreadsheet mainly, or were you talking about the physical, we put it in a bag, we put a number on it, we put it in bins, like,
Well, that is a whole nother aspect of it, which does involve how you're tracking things. So one of the things that we kind of went back and forth in discussing was that how many times are we handling it? How can we avoid human error? How can we do things in a logical order so that we only do it once and then we're done?
How can we be more lean?
Yeah, because we have a situation because it was a spreadsheet. We were making our own inventory number, but we were manually putting those in there. So that's one thing.
Human fingers make mistakes.
If you just it's late and you put 2000, 2001, 2002, 2003, then you got up and got a cup of coffee and came back and did it again. Well, then you're going to have a problem with that. How could you avoid that? How could you put the information in there in the same order, using the same information? Because, the more that we dig into it, the more we're like, okay, it's a shirt, but is it long sleeve or short sleeve?
Is it dress or casual?
Is it dress or casual? Is it button down or button up? Drives me nuts that eBay lumps button ups and button downs into.
Everything's a button up if it's a casual shirt or a button down. They say button down,
which is not, because
not every shirt is a button down.
Yeah, that's casual. So those are all things that we don't know. We can't go, okay, in the shirt category, do we sell more long sleeves or short sleeves throughout the year? I don't know. Do we sell more button downs or button ups? Do we sell more dress shirts or casual? I don't know. And we don't have any way currently, without a whole lot of work, to figure that out. We talked about that before when you talk about chinos and dress pants. And by the way, I'd still need to pull this back up and read it again, but the difference in chinos and khakis, there's a difference. So anyway, the other side that Hope probably thinks more about and that we worked on was the actual physical inventory and how we're storing it. Now, when I first started, there was some bins that we had already been purchasing for separating and organizing tools and all this kind of stuff. And so I was just grabbing more of those when I first started. And they're a decent size. They're not nearly as big. They are clear, so you can see through them. But they're not cheap.
They're not cost effective.
And so when we realized, oh my goodness,
we'd have to have 300.
We're going to have to spend a fortune on buying these. So then we started looking at alternatives. And I know that the Home Depot and the Lowe's had these, but then Sam's had these. And you couldn't beat their price anywhere. And so once we found those, we were like, this is the way. Till
we loaded them up and stacked them.
And now they're no longer the way. And in fact, there is, with this particular type of bin, there is a neat thing that you can build so that you can slide these things in and out. You don't have to unstack and restack. So that was something we were really considering, but you're still going to have to handle that upper one that you slide out without having to unstack everything. You still got to handle it. You're like, well, where are you going to put it? On the ground? You can build a little cart that you can roll up and put it on the cart. Like, this is starting to get complicated. So there's another version that a lot of people use. We still aren't really set up to do it this way, but it's something that's been in the back of our mind, is the version of having those cardboard boxes and you place them in numerical order. I didn't like that one at first because every once in a while you gotta take this time and condense everything down. And what was going to drive me nuts is, say in the second box over here, we sold half of these things right here. Well, now everything, the rest of the stuff in the box is going to just fall over.
Right.
And that was just going to drive me nuts.
So you just have to keep
And
shifting.
you have to keep shifting. And I was like, there's got to be a better way. Well, we thought we had a better way.
We thought we had a better way, but
And if you're 25, you're good.
yeah, and if you are limited on space and you're limited on funds, the way we're doing it currently is a good option with the larger bins that will stack because we don't even have to have shelves.
But it's not a permanent solution.
No, it's not.
Positive thing about these bins is that, we can always use them for something else. We just saw something that I think Sam's just came out with, and it's like, that could be an option. The problem with finding something at Sam's is how long are they going to have these
Right.
things?
It's not available permanently.
Yeah, so that's a whole nother deal. But the good thing about these bins, even though the bins there's a couple different brands and a couple different colors.
They're
they're-
fairly
you
universal.
can find them somewhere, Walmart, Amazon, somewhere. So that one's, so the other part of the inventory nightmare is that when you're doing a larger number, you got to get them down. Well, for us, it's down in the bins. And, if you're finishing up your listings at 9, 10 o'clock at night, the last thing you want to do is go put them in the bins. And so I'm looking over here to the left and seeing these stacks and chairs of stuff that,
need to go down to the bins.
and what happens is, what if we sold one of those? Well, if you're not keeping track of your inventory some way, you don't know. I don't know. She knows more than I do, but especially when they get downstairs and they're still not in the bin, that's when I start having panic attacks.
And right now, there are a lot of bags of inventory that is listed, is tagged with an inventory number, but they're just they're crammed in bags. So
And
I
we
have to go
had-
through the bags.
We had a mess, which we worked on yesterday, because we had bought bins to try to put that stuff in, but we didn't have any place to put the bins up. So now we do.
You have to do some rearranging and
Yeah, so-
organizing.
But anyway, there's so much to that, because what you don't want to do is wait till you get to 3,000, 5,000, whatever, and then try to figure this out, because then it's going to be a nightmare. And it's going to be, you're gonna mess up. You're going to lose items. We've already been in situations where we've spent an enormous amount of time trying to find that one thing
That sold.
that's sold, and we need to find it. And because we are same day shipping, we don't have a lot of time,
Right.
to find that mystery package. But anyway, and we'll talk more about that and do some videos on that and show you, what we're doing. It's a good initial step. We do have random stuff that I think we could probably keep using bins for, because you're not going to have a shelf necessarily that works great for everything.
No.
But those things are also hopefully temporary, because once we sell those off, although, I say never, but if all of a sudden we start selling a bunch of faucets and light fixtures,
Then you might start sourcing them.
because I do know them.
You do, yeah.
I know the good ones and the bad ones, but so, and I'll cover some more of this next week. I did want to give Hope some time, because she has spent, I ain't gonna do it, but she did some
Right.
reading about all the changes.
There's still a lot more to read and to kind of glean from different people, but the new eBay user agreement, I think basically most of us have just kind of gone, yeah, I see it's there, whatever. I don't really have a choice, so we're not taking the time to read it. But I wanted to see what was in it. I wanted to see what was changing. And I think the number one thing that is in the agreement that is affecting everyone is that basically by agreeing to use eBay, we are agreeing to their arbitration system, which
means you can't sue.
Yeah, it means you can't sue them. But I mean, the reality is, the majority of us are small operations, and
We couldn't sue them if we wanted to.
yeah, I was about to say we're not going to sue them because we don't have the time or energy or the money to do that. But I mean, I'm sure that there are probably some larger stores who might attempt to do that. But
I think if I understood it correctly,
Mm-hmm.
if you're a current eBay seller, there is a way that you can jump to a bunch of hoops and you can opt out of that.
Mm-hmm.
But anybody going forward, they don't get the option.
yeah, like basically, if you're starting a store today, you're under that agreement. I think the date is May the 6th that it goes into effect for everybody. But so I think that was the main thing that was changing. But also in reading, there were some things, just reading through it, there were things that came up for me that I did not know. I've done a couple of things that I shouldn't have done, that I've got to correct, as far as like duplicate listings, what they consider a duplicate listing, some corrections that I feel like I need to make.
And you say, well, why are you worried about that? Ain't nobody going to really make a big deal about it. But you know what?
All it takes is
All they need is one reason,
one reason to shut your store down.
and you're done.
So it's a good thing to read through it and to make sure that you're not, unknowingly making some of these mistakes that could cost you tremendously. But another thing that did, and I can't remember exactly the section that it's in, I'll definitely come back to this and make another video just
Proper one?
specifically on it, a proper video, when I've dug into it a little bit more. But there's information about when you create a listing and how that listing may or may not be available to see immediately. So this is what I'm understanding about that, is that they're starting to use AI, and this is all about the buyer's experience. So they want the buyer to have the best experience possible. So that means that if they're shopping for an item, let's say, they're shopping for a pair of, boots, and they're looking for a particular brand, I don't know, like Ariat or something like that. And there are, 50 stores or eBay stores that carry what they're looking for. What the one that is going to pop to the top for them to see is going to be one that's going to create the best experience for them. So that means quite possibly it's going to be someone who ships the fastest or has a very good shipping. I don't know what the terminology is, but they do well with their shipping. That packages get there, they don't have any that get lost. Like we can control that, but still, it still counts against us. If it is close to them geographically, like we're in Alabama, so if they have the option to show someone in California a pair of boots that we have and another store has, but the other store is located in Washington State, then they're going to show them that one first because the likelihood of them getting it faster is more possible.
Or if your listing has, 20 photos and mine has 2.
Right. So I think that there are a lot of layers to what creates a good experience for a buyer. So I think as store owners, we need to be looking at, first of all, creating a very good listing. We need to be handling our shipping with proficiency. We need to be answering questions quickly. When they have the potential buyer has a question about something, if you have a tendency to just sit on things and you don't respond, I think making offers to buyers is even something that they look at. So there's tons of things that you can be doing in your store to catch the eye, I guess, of the AI. It's not just the algorithm, but now the AI is deciding, who needs to be shown and what's going to create a good experience for that buyer. So I feel like moving forward, a big part of this is not just, in order to be successful, it's not just picking good items and pricing them right, but it's a whole lot of other stuff that stacks.
Yeah, and on top of that, like we don't normally find this many, but Monday we found a ton of Polo Ralph Lauren. not polo shirts like
But-
this, but like the
button-up shirts.
brand.
Uh-huh.
We don't normally find this many of those, and so I think you were looking up comps, and you're like, "Hey, look at this." And she was seeing like a bunch of them have been removed, and I was like, "I wonder if the AI was catching fakes."
Possibly.
So, it's doing a lot of things that, good or bad, I mean, how accurate it is or not, because you can kind of briefly share the story, and this is YouTube related, but it's the same principle where you were asking YouTube, and this is
No, I was asking ChatGPT
about YouTube.
about YouTube.
Sorry,
A
that's what I meant
YouTube
to say.
question. Yeah.
And, it spit out an answer. And so, move forward based on that answer, only for it to be wrong. And then have to go back to AI and go, hey, you were wrong. Dig a little deeper.
Yeah, I did. Well, I didn't tell him he was wrong. I just said,
Notice it was a guy when he was wrong.
well, I called ChatGPT Chatty Chad. So
It's not very masculine.
no. But actually, I call him Chat now instead of Chat. But I did go back and
Call him
say,
dude.
huh?
Dude.
Yeah. So I went back and said, okay, I did what you said, and
wrong.
I lost all these views. And
do I fix it?
I said, what did I do wrong? And how can I fix that? And so chat went back, researched it again. I
For
said,
quite a
oh,
while. Didn't you say it? Did
yeah, it was like 10 minutes. And I finally had to say, are you still there? And then it popped back up and said, okay, YouTube made some changes, some quiet changes when it comes to viewing hours. So anyway.
So anyway, the gist of that is that just because you check with Chad doesn't mean that that's accurate, but it doesn't also means that if AI is checking our listings or whatever else doesn't mean it's accurate either.
No.
It may be basing it on old info or
Old info, bad photos.
whatever, who knows.
Uh-huh.
So, now we are going to have to spend this week really digging into what's a fake and what's a real, polo shirt, just to make sure that we don't accidentally, because we got quite a few this time, and we, rarely get this many. Make sure that we don't post one that may or may not be
Legit.
legit, because that's our responsibility.
Yeah.
And last thing we want to do is kill our store off of one.
Yeah, back when we very first opened the store, we did have a shirt that got removed, and
Because it just didn't have a tag.
yeah, so we were confused. There was never a reason.
Yeah.
And I think we said it was unbranded, but
Yeah, we said they didn't like that. We said it was, we didn't know the brand. But we answered all the questions we could answer. But because there was no tags, and it was a Hawaiian shirt, it was the AI or whatever said, nope, pulled
Kicked it out.
They didn't even ask us. They just
yeah,
pulled it.
just pulled it. So thankfully, it didn't
Wasn't the end of the
didn't
world.
appear
but
to
you
be
don't
a
wanna do that
strike
lot.
against us or anything.
And
but,
that's why our policy now is, we grab something, if it didn't have a tag, we're out.
definitely when it comes to like men's blazers, I'm like, if there's not a tag that tells me the size, the location of where it was made, and what the material is, I don't want to touch it. I don't care what brand it is, or how cool it looks. I don't want to be held responsible for missizing something.
Yeah.
So,
So to land this plane, like I said, I will come back and talk about those other items that I mentioned earlier in the following weeks, especially after I dig more into each one of those. But we got something coming up this time next week.
yeah, this time next week, well, not this time, a week from now.
This time next week, we're still going live.
Yeah, we'll be live at noon again next week, and we have not
Noon Central.
completely nailed down exactly what we're going to talk about, but it will be the morning after the seller check-in, which will be on the 7th, and we will be also hosting our North Alabama Resellers eBay group. virtually. So,
To make a difference where you live.
yeah, I have, it's been scheduled for weeks. It's still not apparently showing up if you just try to search it when you go to the eBay community page. So I'm posting a link in the description of this video once it's up and live. And so that'll be a direct link to go to where you can register, and you'll get emailed the notification when it's going to be a Zoom meeting. But if you go searching for it on the community eBay page, it's apparently not there. So I'm trying to learn my way around how to make that work. But it is scheduled for 7 p.m. Central Time on May the 8th, Thursday, May the 8th.
So next week, a lot of stuff going on. If you don't go to the seller, check in. We'll kind of let you know that will be some of the stuff we'll talk about next Thursday.
And I do know one of the topics is going to be the research tool.
Yeah.
So hopefully we can all learn something.
And Hope already complained to him. Plus, I got some stuff to talk about when it related to sales data, which is number 2 on my list here. So those are things we will definitely talk about. But anyway, we hope that y'all have a great weekend. Hopefully the what is the word? The perfect storm happens for all of us. And we're about to have a storm looking out there. So I don't know what the weather's like for y'all, but I'm ready for the May showers to kind of
dwindle. April showers to dwindle off.
Yeah, because it's May.
It is May.
No more May.
All day.
We just want the flowers.
Yep.
Maybe not the pollen. I don't want the pollen.
No, I think the pollen hopefully is gone. I think we've all struggled enough with that.
I don't know. All I know is the grass is back, and that's not fun.
No.
But that's what I did yesterday.
But back to work.
All right.
Ready?
Y'all have a great one. See you in the next one. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much.